journey of singlehood began through the eyes of my widowed mother, a woman who lost her husband to the shadows of schizophrenia after my father's death by suicide. A young mother with a little child moved back into her maternal home. A common story. We've all, read about it. We've seen that in our families after a divorce or a death. We've seen so many COVID widows. The parents' home is the biggest social security and often the biggest financial security for women in this country. What I saw growing up was social stigma. My mother would shop for the trousseau of her favorite sister, but not allowed to be a part of a gai holud or a haldi ceremony. A shad or a baby shah, my mother would be told, you know what, you can't participate. As you know, in Bengal, we worship the mother goddess. But as a mother, as a wife, the highest validation for women all over the world still. And we have, according to me, very divisive customs, like, for instance, Shidur Khela, which divides women on the basis of their marital status, when actually what the world needs, as Dr. Sangeeta Reddy said so beautifully and powerfully, is for women to stand up for each other and share their stories, mentor each other, and be each other's strength and support. Ma's story stayed with me, especially when it had a rainbow twist, when she was exactly my age, 44. She met a wonderful man from this state, of course, a domicile of Bangalore, 13 years younger to her, and she took a bold step. I know that word is very cliched thanks to Bollywood, but she became Mrs. Krishna Rao, and 12-year-old Sreemoyee gave her mother away. I think that was a very, very bold step, but once again, we faced a lot of social ostracism. As a 40-year-old woman in 2018, after having authored 4 best-selling books, including India's first feminist erotica, Sita's Curse. I'm not plugging my books here, though my publisher will be very happy. But I decided to write the story of Indian single women. I was shocked myself as a former editor to learn that we have the highest population of single women in our country, 72.5 million, which is over 7 crores. That's more than the population of Great Britain and Switzerland put together. We've overtaken China in population. We've also overtaken China in terms of single women. And it's important we note that, countries or societies like India and China began as agrarian societies where the men went to work and the women looked after, the children, they looked after ghar girasti, like they said. So I was shocked, and when my agent got in touch with me saying, Sri, you're doing this great blog for India Today where you're writing about singlehood. Yes, I was. I was writing about facing housing discrimination. When I went to Mumbai as a lifestyle editor, my broker told me, you must wear your diamond ring on your left ring finger. And I said, why? I mean, what's the problem? He said, madam, a bachelor girl kehla jaoge. There's a wonderful film by a filmmaker called Shikha Makan called Bachelor Girls, which shows the fight of even actresses like Kalki and director Alankrita Srivastav against regressive housing societies in India. And of course, single men also face this, and God forbid if you happen to be a lifestyle journalist. Because then the questions are on your character. Do you drink? Do you smoke? There were women in my team, young women, who were bringing their colleagues' parents and saying, please come and say you're my auntie, uncle, you're my chacha, chachi, because a woman's izzat is ghar ki izzat. And housing societies and often offices think that it is their moral prerogative to protect this. I was writing about this. I was writing about my friends' marriages breaking up. I was writing about women with disability. After a film I saw moved me deeply based on the life of Malini Chib, Margarita with a Straw. Shonali, who's the director, I consider her a community member, was also talking openly about her bisexuality. I was intrigued by concepts of polyamory that I was coming about. Dating apps in 2018 were bursting on the scene like rental cabs. And I saw Indian women wanting to break free. Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, women in those cities were buying sex toys, which is the biggest industry, though we might squirm and still not talk about menopause, but vibrators are selling. So when my agent told me, Shri, you got to write this into a book, I said I want to do what I did as a journalist, interview and collect stories. We are just a medium. Over a year, I ended up interviewing 3,500 single women from all over this beautiful country. Status Single shot to the best of the bestseller charts. We were covered, I say we because today we are a community, it's not about Shree alone. We were covered in the LA Times as a seminal work of female identity. The New York Times covered us. We were covered in the London Guardian. And many other publications like the BBC recently did a story along with Vice on how singlehood is now a revolution. It is a movement in a country like India where still, no matter how successful you are, how many affairs you've had, are you a divorcee or not, you know, who are you going home with, why is your daughter not married, is she a manglik, do you need to see an astrologer, you know, this is the reality of a country like India, which today boasts of 13 million single mothers. A round of applause for single mothers. I was raised by one. And I think, you know, hats off to women in the media, single mothers. I've had so many in my team putting their children into creches and working late night shifts, going into interiors for stories. If you see the cover of Status Single, my book, I wish I had sent a shot which you could share. Every time I ended an interview, maybe Shireen can relate to this, there's that one question which becomes like a repeat, right? Which you ask to everyone. And I asked them, what is that one word which is associated with your singlehood? I was always called choosy in my family and ambitious, like they were meant to be bad things. If you see the cover, you can just Google the cover of Status Single. We crowdsourced around 20,000 words from almost 26 languages. But very few words are actually flattering. There were words like NGO-type key, aggressive, journalist, sunky, PCOD, bitch, bimbet, slut, sati savitri, ugly, fat. These words kind of just showed how are we looking at single women. The online community was a natural extension of the book because even after I finished interviewing, people wanted to keep sharing. There were so many more aspects of singlehood that were coming up. For instance, I'm really sorry that most of the big guns have left. But for those who are here and work in corporates, it is still a country where if you're divorced, in my community, women work in the best of corporations. They don't want to change back their surname. They don't want to go to office and say that they are a victim of domestic violence. There is absolutely no support group for divorced women. There is absolutely no support group for women who need shelter. Do you realize a woman feels safe in her office? Sometimes that job is not just her lawyer's fees, it is also her identity, her reason to live, her reason to be able to face her child the next morning. So, you know, once we made the community, we were doing a lot of online sessions, and then the COVID happened. And that's when I, as a person, as a woman, as a writer, as a community founder, realized we were extremely vulnerable as a community. Apart from parents, apart from a few good friends and, you know, lovers who come and go most of the time, unless you're really lucky, you know, women really had no emotional support. Mental health was an issue. When the COVID struck during the second wave especially, there were children of elderly single women, maybe unmarried single women or divorced or widowed single women who lived all by themselves. And they were telling us, Shree, we need to, you know, send medicine to our mother. There's no caregiver. The caregivers have stopped coming. Women were calling me and saying that offices have made it online working, but I have only one laptop, Shree, and my child has now graduated to online education, so I have to, you know, what do? I need another laptop. Women were losing jobs, and entrepreneurship was developing. You know, in my community, I must say to all these gutsy entrepreneurs, there are so many first-generation entrepreneurs. Some of them have fought legal battles with the husband's family when the business was given over to the brother-in-law or the sister-in-law who was married. In 2021, one of the young girls from the Kolkata, part of Status Single gave a clarion call saying, let's meet. And that's how the fire spread. And today we are existent. My community members from Hyderabad are here. I would like you all to give a round of applause to them. All of them working, successful corporate honchos. and some of them